Starting. Ha! Ohio gozaimasu. I am Frederick Philip Von Weiss, and thank you for consuming the Thunder Nerds, a conversation with the people behind the technology that love what they do and do tech good. Na. Hey guys, thank you so much for being a part of the show, watching. Let me just preface that if you have any time to go to iTunes, give us a like, subscribe, kick a few stars our way. And if you notice, we don't have Brian Hinton on the show today because he's locked up in a room until we get 500 subscribers on YouTube. So if you love Brian Hinton, subscribe, please. With that being said, and without any further ado, let's go ahead and welcome our guest. We have Brand Marketing Manager, Grace Estle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Frederick. So happy to be here. And just a note to everyone, Brian's actually in my closet, so better get those 500 subscribers quickly. I'm not going to let him out. There's nasty stuff in there. Spikes.
We're trying not to give Brian's location away.
Well, you know, nobody knows where I am right now. Oh, it's all good.
That's right. Yeah, good point.
It's all good.
Yeah. Love you, Brian. Just kidding. Not kidding. So anyway, Grace.
Frederick.
Master P.
Master P.
No Limit Soldier should have told you. What should he told us?
Well, you know, he should have told us that he was bouted 1,000 times.
Sorry about what?
With a whole crew of people. With a crew of people, never-ending people, 6 minutes long, just a whole bunch of verses, just rapping about nothing.
And gold tanks, I love it.
Gold tanks, gold jewelry.
Grace, let me ask you some questions here. What exactly do you do? We know that you are a brand marketing manager. What does that mean?
Well, essentially, it means that I make phone calls all day and I make magic happen. If I want to be
Harry
really
Potter
specific,
magic?
Well, you know, for me, I prefer dark side magic from Star Wars. Not really so much with the Harry Potter, but a lot of people are. So mad love to those people. But brand marketing really comes down to a couple of things. It's really creating awareness for the company, and it's trying to really connect with the customer base. So that's a lot of what I do. It's a mix of traditional marketing and digital, bringing it all together.
You know, that's a interesting point that you bring up. I think there's some people out there that don't understand the difference between traditional marketing and digital marketing. Do you mind jumping into that just a little bit?
No problem at all. You know, it's a funny thing because really until kind of 2004, 2005, that's really when digital started to take off in a way that everyone knew it wasn't going away. You know, a lot of marketers, and I know you probably laugh and giggle about this, websites they thought was just going to be a phase. Display advertising was just going to be a phase. And now we live in a world where we all carry these smartphones and can't separate ourselves from them. And really traditional marketing comes down to that method of marketing that happened before the digital era. So we're talking about things like TV, billboard, print advertising, magazine. And then, of course, digital is anything that happens on the online space. And today that actually extends beyond what we used to think about as computer only. Now we're talking about tablets and smartphones and just being in people's faces anytime we can be on multiple screens.
That's interesting. So what do we think about as far as the traditional? Is that something that's antiquated and gone away, or is really everything just evolved to digital? Is that just where it is?
There's still a place for both. And to be honest, you never want to put all your eggs in one basket. You want to diversify your strategies. And so it always comes down to who you're actually targeting. But some of these traditional methods, television, billboard, print, they really are great with raising that brand awareness, getting your message out there, increasing frequency so people remember who you are. And then some of these digital strategies can really help increase sales and call to action. So at the end of the day, it all works together.
Nice. So how did you get interested in this? Where did you get your start for your love of marketing? Where did that come from?
If I'm going to be completely honest, I think my love of marketing really started when I was a kid and I was paying attention to TV commercials and reading magazines and looking at the ads and marveling over the different tactics that brands were using to increase their sales and get their products and services out in the marketplace. That's really where it started for me. I actually didn't get into it until around 2005, and that was back when I worked for Time Warner Cable.
Oh, that's interesting. So like right around the time when everything started to go to the digital advertising?
Yeah, and a lot of people consider me a digital marketing expert, but I actually did quite a bit in traditional. And I remember I really didn't get into digital that hard until around 2010, 2011. And I spent about 5 or 6 years trying to fight it myself because it made me nervous. It was such a challenge. There were so many unknowns. And at that time it was hard to actually quantify the results, which is silly because today a lot of people automatically go into digital marketing because they know they can get all these numbers. A lot of them they don't even know what to do with, but they can actually see what's happening. And, you know, if you look at something like TV and billboard, let's talk about billboard for a second. It's hard to be able to say how many people actually looked at that billboard. But if we're doing display advertising online, you can say how many impressions you got. You can say how many click-throughs you got. It's just easier to measure it. So for me, I dabbled in it in the beginning, and really display advertising is where I started. But I did not start getting into what became a passion of mine, is still a passion of mine, which is content marketing. I really didn't jump into that arena until 2013.
Content marketing. Can you describe that a little bit for the people that might not know?
You know, there's a great saying out there, and I would butcher his name if I tried to say it, but he's from HubSpot. And what he said is content is anything that provides value to your audience. So content consists of social media, it's blogging, it's white papers, it's any of those things that you would download or provide to a customer. All those things are considered content. And it's really valuable today because being in the digital space, people usually have to interact with a brand 30 times before they even will consider interacting with them or making a purchase. So when you think about that, you know, there's a lot of different methods that you can utilize to help reach that audience. And the more places you are, the better a chance you have of getting that sale.
Sure. So getting people familiar with your brand, making it something that attaches to, say, someone's ego. And I mean that, I don't mean that in the sense of the traditional like ego and super ego and it, but as far as like you feel a connection with it. Like when you think of Pepsi, it makes you think of that first time you and your mom had a Pepsi in 1984 or whatever. Like there's some kind of emotional connection that attaches to your ego, and that association with that brand does so much for the rest of your life for that brand.
Yes, and I mean, and it doesn't have to be something that emotional. It can be the first time you saw a Geico commercial and you got confused because you thought that a gecko was a Geico. After seeing that commercial, you start calling geckos Geicos because that meme got stuck in your head. It's about making what you just said. It's an authentic connection, and that can manifest in so many different ways.
Yeah, authentic connection. Exactly. That's really interesting. And I think we're going to jump into some of those topics a little later on. Before we do a deep dive more into the market realm, why don't we get a little bit more context about you? Where did you go to school? How did you get your start within school? You sought out to be something in marketing. How did that work?
Well, if we're going to go back, it started for me in high school. The last 2 years of high school, I actually did an administrative assistant program. And I'm not going to lie, part of it was because I got to leave school half a day and work in an office. So I got to ditch some classes. That definitely was a motivator. But the bigger motivator was that I wanted to work in corporate America when I was 18. I wanted to get into a great company, and I wanted them to pay for my college. And I knew that having that background, you know, to be 18 years old and to be able to say I'd worked in an office for a couple of years, I knew it would be a great stepping stone. And that's exactly what happened. When I was 18, I got a job at Time Warner Cable, and I thought I was going to be a computer programmer. And one of my coworkers was a computer programmer, and he was incredibly talented. And I would go sit next to him, and I would watch him, and I would watch all this code coming down the screen like the Matrix. And I remember thinking, nope, that's not for me. You know,
well, okay. Do you mind if I ask? Sorry to interrupt you, but what kind of computer programmer did you want to be? Like, what did you want to develop?
I really didn't know. Like, I knew that I thought maybe like websites, I would go like into some of the heavy website design that was really necessary at that time. So that's kind of what I thought. But I also thought that as I started learning languages, I would kind of find my niche. I remember sitting next to that computer programmer, and he would be doing his thing and, you know, typing 200 words a minute. And there was a whiteboard next to him, and I would actually be drawing on that whiteboard. So that's how much computer programming got me excited, that I just wasn't paying attention at all. And for me, I've always been a creative person. And so that's kind of what led me into marketing. I started looking at the advertising department, and I just started thinking, you know, that might be a place for me. And after about, let's see, that was my sixth, seventh year at Time Warner Cable, I actually switched into the advertising department, which really launched my whole marketing career. And what's so unique about my background is that I spent so many years in advertising. I spent around 7 years, that it really helped me become a better marketer. You know, the advertising and marketing are kind of like brother and sister in a sense, where advertising really teaches you those specific mechanisms that you use to help market, and marketing teaches you how to use those methods effectively. So it all comes full circle. And I really feel it's one of the reasons that I've been so effective in branding.
You brought up a point that you wanted to go to college at a young age, and you thought that getting some kind of job to where you could do that as well would be very effective within your career. Did you actually do that? Did you find some kind of position that allowed you and provided some kind of path for you to go to college?
Yes, I was very fortunate when I got into Time Warner Cable. I originally thought I was going to take a year off. I thought I'll go back to college when I'm 19. By this time, I will have worked in corporate America for a year. I'll have a better idea of what I want to do. I didn't go back till I was 21. And those 3 years, I learned a lot about myself. I learned I didn't want to be a computer programmer. I learned that writing was a serious passion of mine. And I decided to go into technical writing, which is what my associates ended up being. So I got my associates. I was very fortunate. My company paid for it.
Wow.
Because
they did for your whole school?
They did. I was very fortunate. Now, because I worked full time, I went to school half time. So that 2-year program took me 7 years to get that done.
Wow. Well, I mean, and congratulations, you actually done it, and you fulfilled that destiny. You went to school and you worked full time. No matter how long it took you, you did it.
I did do it, and I took a year off after my job moved me and I had been promoted, and then I did a 2+2 and I finished my bachelor's. So all in all, school took me 13 years. I graduated in 2015, so I haven't even been out of school that long when you think about it. But it was very valuable. It was a great time because I was applying what I was learning in the workforce. And at the same time, I was moving up and taking on different positions in the workforce. So for me, it was the right path. I'm not recommending it to everyone. A lot of people told me, look, if you don't go right away, you won't. And I believe that happens to a lot of people. But
oh, yeah, absolutely.
I needed that life experience first. And it was the right step because I learned so much about myself in 3 years that I was able to go to school. And I actually went to school for the right reasons. I wanted to learn. I actually paid attention in class. I did the homework. So I think taking that time off just helped me be more studious.
I think what happens is when people don't go to school right away, you'll get these examples of where they don't have the money at the end of a certain period of time. Like they go, hey, you know what? I'm 24, I'm 25. I'm thinking about going to school now. Oh, wait, I'm married and I have 5 kids.
Right.
Or hey, you know, I'm in this job and I'm kind of stuck. I don't see any path to have time to go to school. What am I going to do? I'm just going to stick right here and stay with the devil I know. So good on you for finding that opportunity and actually fulfilling that destiny and getting through school. Because a lot of people don't do that, even if they had those opportunities that you were presented. Yeah,
it wasn't easy, but I'm glad that I took that path. And ultimately, I'm very happy with where I am now. And both physically, now that I'm here in Florida, and the actual work that I'm doing is very fulfilling. So definitely the right path for me.
Do you mind if you talk a little bit about where you're working at and what your day-to-day is now?
Sure. I work for a company called PGT Industries, located in Southwest Florida, and we primarily service the Florida market, but we're actually a national company. And what we do is we actually make windows and doors. Our business is unique in the sense that we indirect sell. So we do not sell any of our products directly to consumers. We actually have dealers who do it on our behalf. PGT Industries is going through a major growth period. They have acquired 2 other companies over the past few years. So we actually have 3 brands. within the company. So the one I represent is PGT, which is the core of our business. You know, we make the windows and doors that I just mentioned, but a big part of our business is that we actually make impact resistant windows, which is incredibly important in the Florida market because it helps protect families during hurricanes and major storms. So that's a big part of what we do. Our CGI brand also does some impact resistant windows, and they also service a lot of commercial businesses. And then we have our Winddoor brand, which is very prestigious brand where you're talking about millionaires who have multiple houses located throughout the country, and they're buying our products to be put into these gorgeous homes.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this company is well known. It's probably been around for 10, 20 years, something like that, or how long?
It's been around since the 70s.
The 70s. Okay. Okay. So a long time.
Yes. Our CEO actually started it in his backyard. He was making windows in his backyard. Now, he recently retired. I believe that was last year. And he had someone else take over that he had been working with for a number of years. So the company is in an excellent growth period, and it's just a really exciting time to be there.
Nice. That's awesome. So what exactly is your day-to-day then? We talked about the company. What exactly do you do on that day-to-day?
My day-to-day consists of, we actually have a lot of products in the pipeline, whether they're going to be enhanced or we're actually going to have new products. So I am in charge for the branding of those products. So, you know, when you think about any type of product launch, you're talking about at least 6 months where you're really planning out, you know, the phases, and marketing enters into it, you know, at a point where the product's far enough along. But what I'm really fortunate enough to have a window into, pun intended, is that I get to work with, you know, the manufacturing department and the product department, really understand all the facets of these products being created, and then apply my actual commercialization plan to it. You know, in addition to that piece, it's really just making sure that our brand is properly represented in the marketplace too, in terms of, you know, what is that digital strategy that we're using, whether it's organic or whether it's paid, and what are the traditional resources that we're using. Because we indirect sell, our customers are actually the dealers who in fact sell to the consumer. So a big part of what I do is making sure that those dealers have what they need to be successful.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun.
It is. It's a lot of fun. It's very rewarding. I'm happy every single day, so I can't complain.
Yeah, definitely a product that we need here in Florida.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I will never look at windows the same ever again. When you start learning the different kinds of glass out there, and you start understanding that every piece of glass is stamped, you just look for this stuff in windows. You're scarred in a good way for life. So,
so are these windows that like I could buy for my home too for hurricane protection?
Yes, you would actually go to a dealer, whether that's, you know, a window company, or it could be one of these big box retailers that actually sells our products. Yeah.
Oh, like I could go to a Home Depot or Lowe's or something. Okay.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah. You know, I need to invest in something like that, especially after that last hurricane of last year. I forget the name of it, but that slightly sucked.
It was some gal. I don't know. She was just wrecking Florida last year. And
yeah, it was awful.
She really caused a lot of trouble on the Southwest coast. But yeah, we actually had a lot of stories that came in late last year of homeowners talking about how, you know, these windows were like vaults, and you know, the wind did not get into their homes. And it's just really rewarding to actually see homeowners talk about how protected they felt.
Oh, that's really nice. Yeah, that really beats putting up like some steel shutters up, kind of ad hoc, and just knowing that you have that protection and that peace of mind there's so much value in that.
No, that's exactly right. The thing about putting shutters up or putting plywood up is that it has to be done. You actually need an engineer to teach you how to do that properly to protect your windows, because you can actually cause a bigger mess by putting those up incorrectly. And let's be honest, how many of us have engineers that we can just call up and say, hey, come over and do my windows while you're doing everyone else's windows in your neighborhood and your family? Would you just add me to the list?
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be thousands of dollars if you're asking for that kind of service the week, the day of.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how it happens. You know, that's how it happens.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to get shit out of luck.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Hey, I was wondering if we could change gears a little bit and we'll get back into the marketing stuff. I wanted to talk about something that's a little topical, something that's been filling everybody's email boxes up lately, and that is the GDPR. I want to talk about what exactly it is, how it affects people, how it affects businesses, and what to look for and what things we need to change. So GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, right? So this is basically rules for collecting and storing data. It's a way to not have dark patterns, like when people would have checkboxes already pre-filled in that says, yes, I subscribe to your newsletter, like that. Those things go away, right? It's a way to solve these issues. So what are these rules? Why do we care even in the United States?
Well, the fact that it's in Europe, I think that's a good point to bring up, because as Americans, we think, yes, this is going on in Europe right now, but why does this affect us? And obviously, if you sell in Europe, you should care about this. And it's funny, when you switched into this conversation, the first thing you said was, this is filling up our email boxes. Well, if you're in Europe, it's not hitting your email box unless you've consented to it. Starting on May 25th, you had to consent to it. It's incredibly important, not just for marketers and companies who actually sell in Europe. It's important to understand the implication of this that could actually echo worldwide. When we think about what happened in March of this year between Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, that data breach that affected up to 87 million Facebook users, where people's information was being taken, they had no idea. Then we look at last Thursday, there was a bug in Facebook. And that bug, unfortunately, there was, I believe it was around 14 million. It was still millions.
Like it was a
millions of people who thought they were posting to just their friends or privately, and they were actually posting publicly. When we think about these things, and we know that Facebook has been under a lot of scrutiny, they're being investigated, I really think that's what has propelled Europe into taking these measures. And it comes down to a couple of things. There's been these email rules in place forever, and email marketers are very familiar with these rules. And it's some of the things that you talked about. You always make sure that your subscribers can opt out easily. You just talked about dark patterns. Well, there's another dark pattern, and that's the whole idea of you're opted in until you opt out. Okay, that checkbox, very tiny, opt out, that can't happen anymore. And I think, in a world where marketing automation has become the standard, it's really important to make sure that we are being authentic and honest in how we actually connect with consumers. And that means taking that step to be completely transparent and let them know why we want their information, how we're actually going to use their information, and what they can expect from us. It's human nature. I mean, it's practicing good habits. It's being a good human being. We all have the power to do this. And so I applaud Europe for putting these laws into place. And I feel for the companies who either will ignore it or just maybe aren't aware of it and end up getting fined because of it. The fines are pretty serious.
Isn't it up to 4% of your yearly profit or something like that?
It is. It is, depending upon what that violation was.
Oh, okay. So there's certain tiers of violation and then certain tier of penalty. That's really interesting. So what about let me ask, what does this mean for a small business in the United States? Say if I have a company in Ohio, middle America, and I'm a small business and I'm selling some products, and, anybody online could buy my product. So somebody in London buys my product, and for some reason I'm not doing these laws correctly, right? I have that checkbox checked already, right? That pre-filled checkbox that says, oh, if you don't want this, uncheck, blah, blah, blah. Am I going to get fined?
If you sell to European customers, yes, you could get fined.
Now, and let me preface that I said that I'm a U.S.-based company, and I'm selling online. So that means if I'm selling online, I'm selling to the world.
It may mean that. There are plenty of companies who just sell nationwide. And so the thing to remember is it doesn't matter where your company is. If you have European customers, you need to follow these rules. That's what it comes down to. Take a big step back. Don't worry about the fact that you're in Ohio. Worry about the fact that you may be selling to Europe, and you need to follow these rules. The other thing that's really interesting about this 88-page document that's 50,000 words, and I am a little upset that you didn't read the 50,000 words to everyone, Frederick.
I was going to. I was thinking about doing it after we talked about it, but I mean, if you're going to bring it up,
that would be the bonus scene.
Do it.
That would be in the bonus scenes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to sit around and listen to those 50,000
Stay tuned for
words.
Facebook Live. We're going to do it.
It's going to be like attendance of 1. You know, the interesting thing about this law, there's a lot of interesting things, but the thing that really struck me is that it is not just starting May 25th, 2018 forward. They're actually asking companies who sell to Europe to go backwards and to look at the lists that they have in place and to actually scrub those lists and to get proper permissions. And so I think that from a marketing standpoint, there will be a lot of companies who will be reapproaching their actual subscribers and asking them to re-opt in.
So how does that work for a company that leverage a service like, I don't know, any mail service like a Marketo or a MailChimp or something like that, and they have these lists?
Right.
Are these companies doing anything to protect the small business owner from these things, or their customers rather, in total? So if I'm, like I said, a small business owner in wherever middle America, and perchance somebody in Europe makes a purchase on my website, am I protected? Do I need to go in and change these emails, or are these companies going to help me out?
To my understanding, there aren't really a lot of resources in place. And to my understanding as well, I'm not sure what the practice will be for actually monitoring. I don't know that there's been a lot of data that has come out about that. It's more just the guidelines that are in place that companies should be following. You know, there's actually an upside to this. And I would say to any small company who may be concerned, the upside is that you can actually use it to your advantage. From a marketing standpoint, you can take the opportunity to stand out from the competition and to be very transparent about the fact that you follow these rules. And I'm thinking about, there was a German grocery store that when you actually go to their homepage, there is a window that pops up and it explains how they use cookies, why they're taking this information, how they're going to use it, what people can expect. And when you think about that, especially when we're talking about millennials, which we know are major purchasers, and we look at Generation Z after them as well, they really care about how is my information being used. It can actually lead them to buy from you versus a competitor. So I would say to any business, small or large, use it to your advantage in your marketing and make sure that you actually talk about what you're doing to follow these laws and show that you actually care about people's information. Because at the end of the day, we're all people. It doesn't matter what company you have, we're all people, and people connect with people. So it's an opportunity to, again, be authentic.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I'm sure there's a lot of companies that are going to leverage this opportunity to communicate, hey, we're authentic, take a look around, you see anything, nothing up this sleeve, we're here to help, we're here to do this. Johnny around the corner, not so much.
Yeah, exactly. And, you think about just the smallest things, like when you purchase something and they ask for your phone number, that's a perfect opportunity to say, we're using this phone number for these reasons. It may be because customer service might follow up with you. It may be because we're going to send you a text message. But I think when people understand that, they're more likely to click that buy button.
Yeah, you're earning that trust, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You're not just kind of taking that stuff as a for granted. Rather, it's more, you're explaining why you're going to do these things, what's the purpose behind it, and maybe it's kind of a antiquated thought of just taking this stuff for granted, like, oh, people are going to give me this information if I ask them on a form. You can also think about that as far as why am I not getting conversions on this form? Well, maybe because you're not being authentic, maybe because you're not explaining it, and maybe that's going to solve some issues in the marketing realm and the UX realm, the CX realm, when we start having these laws more enforced. Now, do you see that kind of bleeding into the United States as far as legislation?
Yes, I definitely think this is an instance where we might replicate what's happening in Europe. And I just spent some time talking about Facebook, and I think this is on a lot of people's minds. And it seems like, unfortunately, every week we're seeing some kind of breach, even though Facebook has taken all of these steps. And now they have this, if you've seen the TV commercial, they're talking about how they're trying to take it back to what it originally was meant to be a way to connect with family and friends and to keep you protected. But yet we keep seeing these things out in the media and millions of people are affected. I definitely see this as a situation where it could become part of what the world ends up doing, not just Europe, not just the US. And I think that as marketers, whether you're over there or you're in the States with Frederick and me, you should think about these things as you're doing your marketing plans, because it shouldn't just be about the fact that somebody's telling you to do this, that the government's actually putting this into place. It should be about the fact that you want to do the right thing by your customers. And it only takes a few seconds to put this code into your website. We're talking about e-commerce right now, which honestly, in this actual plan, e-commerce is just a footnote. This is supposed to be a practice across all kinds of marketing, not just e-commerce platforms where people are purchasing products online. But, just thinking about being transparent and being incredibly honest, not only will it help you get more customers, but it'll help you sleep better at night too.
Yeah, it's interesting because this goes into one of the things that we were going to talk about on our agenda for new trends in marketing. Mm-hmm. And one of them really is, and I think this aligns perfectly with it, is brand purpose 2.0.
Yes.
So that's consumers are increasingly factoring things like brand mission, values, stability in their purchase decisions, right? Mm-hmm. So yes. they want authenticity.
Mm-hmm. They really do. And, when we think about it, it's funny to think about the different generations and their purchase patterns. And I'm going to go back to baby boomers, and I'm going to think about my parents because they're in that generation. And baby boomers they connect with brands. You'll hear baby boomers say, well, I've been buying Jif for 30 years. I won't buy any other peanut butter. I don't care. I don't care if there's something that's better or cheaper. I like the way Jif tastes. I like that I recognize the label. I know what the price is. I'm gonna choose it. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna continue to choose it till I die. And that's how they actually connect with products. Generation X, a little bit of the same thing, but they're more likely to experiment. They see a new peanut butter come out. It's like, well, maybe I'll try that. I don't know, but maybe I will. Then you look at a millennial and you look at Generation Z after the millennial, and it's a completely different thought process. I don't care about the brand. Here's what I care about. I care about price. I care about, is this company an honest company? Are they sustainable? What are they doing for the environment? What am I doing for the environment if I buy this product? Are proceeds going to a charity? So they actually start thinking about, what is the mission of that company? What does that company stand for? And if they see a small company that a baby boomer wouldn't care about, but they actually know that that company is investing in the environment, they'll be loyal to that company, and they'll tell the baby boomer, we'll stick with Jif. I found something else that I think is better.
Yeah, and marketing is all about, purchasing is all about, and the market rather, excuse me, the market is really all about you vote every time you make a purchase,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
And if you vote for the right companies, meaning the companies that align with your agenda or, actually helping people out, like there's companies that if you buy a pair of shoes, they'll actually provide a pair of shoes for somebody in a foreign country, right?
Yes, yes.
So there's things like that where, and you were talking about the other generations might not so much align with that. And it's more about, well, I like Adidas and that's all I buy.
Yeah, I like it. I've always bought it. I don't want to change. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but what I am saying is, as marketers, we recognize that we really care about millennials. We really care about Generation Z. There is a lot of buying power between those two generations. And if we're going to continue to connect with them and make sales, we need to think about what matters to them. And these things matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's only going to, exponentially get greater force behind this movement, don't you think?
Yes, yes.
Is this just a thing in America, or is this a global kind of thing?
I would say that this is definitely a global thing. I think a lot of people in general are starting to think about their specific footprint and what they're doing to make the world a better place. And, you see people who will say, well, I'm going to start carpooling because, I want to help, make a safer environment. I want to cut down on this pollution. And I don't think that's just an American way of thinking. I think we want to be here for a long time. We want our future generations to be here too. And taking care of the planet is a big part of that. A couple months ago, I was actually at a summit, and there was a female CEO who had worked for Gap and Levi's, just some of these huge retail brands. And she walked away from it to actually start her own company. And she makes these bags, and it's sustainable, and she's very transparent about where the money goes when you purchase these bags. And she's managed to be very successful in her small business. And for her, she said it's the most rewarding work that she's ever done. And it was very inspirational.
I love that. See, I think if you look back at this kind of idea, maybe even 15 years ago, people would more think it's associated with like a hippie kind of movement, if you will.
Agreed.
Yeah, and now people actually care about these things, and this is more coming to fruition of actually caring about brands and, as I said before, voting with your dollars in the market.
Yes, you hear stories all the time about global warming, and you hear all of these scary things. There's definitely repercussions to how we have behaved towards our planet all of these years, and so it's wonderful to see that there are companies that care about decreasing landfills and want to make the world a better and safer place.
Yeah, exactly. One of the other things, I think this is kind of on topic, off topic, that we were going to talk about with marketing trends is the analog bounce back.
Yes.
So what exactly is that? Do you mind going into that?
Oh, I don't at all. It's the whole idea of getting away and unplugging and really connecting with nature. And we're seeing it with a lot of apps that are out there. Personally, I got turned on to the Calm app. Are you familiar with the Calm app? Do you use it?
Which app? I'm sorry?
Calm.
Calm. Oh, yeah. I love Calm. Yeah, I use the web app.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I actually have it on my iPad. I fall asleep to it every night. And, it's basically a sound machine. You have your option between all these wonderful sounds and music, or you can do the sleep stories, which I'm obsessed with.
Sleep stories? What's that?
Yeah, you can actually click on the sleep stories, and there are many men and women who have wonderful voices who read you wonderful stories and help put you to sleep. And, it's just the idea of unplugging and getting back to nature. And you see a lot of companies actually doing it offline, taking it from that digital landscape and taking it into the real world. And it's an interesting trend that I definitely think will continue to grow.
So how do companies leverage this? What do they do?
I know with the solar eclipse, and I can't remember exactly which company it was, but with the solar eclipse, they had built some event around it. Do you remember who that company was? I can't remember off the top of my head, but
no, nor can I cite the event. I don't know which one.
You don't know the solar eclipse at all. But no,
what's this thing with the sun?
I mean, who knows? Like, it goes dark for a hot minute. Nobody knows what happened.
Was that the day where I got blind for an hour?
That was. You unfortunately looked where you weren't supposed to look. And
you always look at the sun. That's the right place to look.
That is not the right place to look. You gotta have the special
always
glasses
look directly into the sun. That's
my advice. Glasses on. Protect the eyes. Don't be blinded. You don't want to be like Neo in the Matrix, in the third Matrix. It was really bad.
Oh yeah.
It was a game changer. Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was hard to look at too.
It was.
As a viewer, it was not fun. But I know there are companies who are actually, having events, in parks, in nature. Domino's came out recently and said that they will start delivering to public places like parks and beaches. And so that's that's the analog bounce in a different way.
That's pretty cool. All right. Another thing we were going to talk about was eco-branding.
Yes.
So kind of the same realm of saving the planet. Do you mind diving into that a little bit?
Yeah, it's the whole idea of being conscientious in your marketing. And, you know, one of the things that really stuck out with me is I read this stat and I just couldn't get it out of my mind. And it was the fact that printer ink it actually costs twice as much to make than Chanel No. 5, which Chanel No. 5 is like one of the most sought after and recognizable perfumes out there. But yet printer ink that we all use daily or maybe weekly for some costs twice as much. And that is just incredible to think about. That's mind boggling. I don't even know how much Chanel No. 5 goes for, but
it's by No. 4. I don't know. I don't know if 5.
Well, I don't know 4 or 5, so you're ahead of me in that game. But really,
4 smells like cinnamon.
Well, the No. 5 must smell like nutmeg.
It does.
They gotta go together. They got to go together. But eco-branding, essentially what that's doing is it's doing things like taking a logo and redesigning it slightly so it's using less ink, you know, so that we can be conscientious. And it kind of has this trifecta of, you know, you're saving money because you're not using as much ink, but at the same time, you're helping the planet. And so it's a really great blend of everything that we've talked about, because there's the what's in it for everyone else, and there's also the what's in it for you, which is a business that does matter.
Well, I think that probably also goes back to the brand purpose 2.0, right? So it's and just transparency, right? So you're one, you're helping to reduce the amount of ink that's used. You're reducing waste. You're you know, you're doing something positive.
Yes.
And you're also saving money as an entity because you're not using so much ink.
You are. I mean, they say you can save up to 40% just by, you know, changing your logo. There are a lot of logos out there that are multiple colors, you know, just changing it to one color and specifying the type of ink, like colors even factor into it, and methods.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like if some of the examples I saw were like the Apple logo, if it wasn't completely all shaded in, or the Nike swoosh, if it wasn't all shaded in, and just some of it was removed, and it still looks good, it's still effective, you still understand the brand when you see it. It's not a full solid vector, but you know, there's just some of it that's missing. And for a large entity like a Nike or a McDonald's, something like that, 40% is quite substantial.
It really is. It really is. Think about what you could do with that 40%. Whether you're a large retailer or, you know, a big box retailer, or not even a retailer, whether you're a large business or a small business, you could do a lot with 40%.
Yeah, you could sponsor the next Jersey Shore with that.
You definitely could get some time with Snooki.
So do you think Sammy is going to be in the final finale? Is she going to be there?
Angelina?
No, we saw Angelina was there. Is Sammy going to come on the show?
Sam. I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said. I need Sam to come back. I'm going to be honest. I love the show no matter what. I love the fact that Mike is now, he says that he's under construction.
He's under construction.
He's under construction. I think it's phenomenal, but I need some Sammy and Ronnie. I need some Sammy and Ronnie in my life. I need to see that drama. I need to see furniture being broken and stop.
I think the whole thing is like a setup for like the next season. Like it's Jersey Shore family reunion in, you know, like those old family vacation movies, like in Europe. Like it's going to be one of those, and like she's going to walk in, and like the last episode, there's going to be something. Ron's going to punch a wall and get all angry and take his shirt off, and then it's like they're together, and then it's going to show next time on Jersey Shore, Europe.
Yeah, or it could be, you know, family vacation, Sammy versus Ronnie. We could see them in the ring together. You know, they could go so many routes with it, but MTV just has to remember, if they're going to market for it in Europe, they better get some consent.
Oh shit!
And they better be transparent. Yeah, they better be transparent. GDPR. It's going to be a new catchphrase for the Jersey Shore cast. You heard it right here.
I love that. I really like Jersey Shore. It's funny. It's very entertaining.
I love it. I love it, and I am wicked sad because I think next week, or this week, technically, this upcoming week, I think it's the last one for the season.
Oh man, really?
Yeah,
I really doubt they're going to they are.
They already got renewed. They're coming back. Family Vacation Part 2.
Oh, that's so good. I always felt too like there's no way this could work again, but it totally worked.
It totally worked. Like I thought, well, with them being older, will it be boring? Nope.
No, I
Nope.
don't even care really, honestly, if this is all scripted, which I'm sure it is.
To an extent.
Yeah, it's still super funny.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. And the one thing I do wonder, I feel like Angelina might be coming back next time full time.
Oh, like full time? Maybe she will.
She's got to be kicking herself like in the ass, because she could be millionaires like the rest of them. But she chose to leave twice. I mean,
maybe she is. Maybe she is in her own right. Maybe she's not making the money from MTV, but maybe she's making the money selling stuff, talking about the show.
Yeah, that could be true. And I know she was in wrestling for a hot minute too. So
wrestling?
Yeah, she was in wrestling.
She was a wrestler?
I guess so.
Wow,
I mean,
good for her.
She's in great shape.
I mean, good for her. I'm just, I just don't think about those people as wrestlers in my mind.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but I don't really know what I think about wrestlers anyway. So,
well, I think of GTL. I mean, that's pretty much what I think about when I think about Jersey Shore. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
GTL.
Yeah, GTL, GTF, whichever. I don't know. So let me ask you something that I wanted to ask you about your music, if you don't mind sharing this with the world. I know you are a musician, a singer, if you will. Maybe singer's the right term.
Yeah, I wouldn't say musician. I don't play any instruments.
I mean, sure, but you are somebody that delves into the musical arts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you mind going into that a little bit?
Sure. When you're a marketer, you're one of two marketers. You're a creative marketer or an analytical marketer. And as I say that, I'm sure there are a lot of people right now saying, well, I'm both. And yes, that does happen, but you always lean towards one. And for me, it's creative. And one way that I stay creative is by being creative in different ways. And music is a passion of mine. So, I was in a band years ago singing R&B music. These days, I just stick to an app called Smool. It's actually called Sing by Smool, this company, but it allows you to actually record karaoke tracks, and you pretty much have them forever as long as you're a subscriber, and you can duet with people all over the world, and it's just a really incredible collaborative tool, and it's just a wonderful way to actually like hear yourself and know when you're singing off key and know when there's tone issues and pacing issues and all that. So it's just a lot of fun. It's really rewarding. I have family overseas in the Philippines, so it gives me an opportunity to actually share my music with them easily.
Oh, that's cool. So your family's over in the Philippines?
Yes, my mom's side of the family is over in the Philippines. So
where's your dad's side?
They are in the States. So I was actually born in the Philippines, and my dad was from Ohio, which is why I ended up in Ohio. My parents kidnapped me when I was 4 and took me to the Arctic instead of allowing me to stay in the tropics, which is why I've been trying to get to Florida my entire life. So when that actually happened in 2017, I was very relieved. I couldn't take one more Midwest winter. I had had enough.
So you're not about the cold?
I am not about the cold. I am not about anything under 50 degrees. It's over.
Well, but you're in the right spot, because it's always 90 degrees in Florida.
Yeah, I hit the beach today, like I always do on the weekends, and nice. I feel connected. It's my analog bounce is heading to the beach. So
there you go. Speaking of the analog bounce, I also saw something interesting. There's this new phone that came out, and I forget the name of the company or what it's called, but I'll put a link in the show notes. But it's one of these devices that it's not a quote unquote dumb device, but it's only limited to a certain amount of features, meaning it has a phone that you could call somebody, you could text, it has a map, and that's it.
It kind of sounds like analog phones from back in the day. It's like they just pulled out the LG flip phone.
I'm sorry. There's one other thing. It does have the internet, so you can have a small browser, but that's it. There's no email. Obviously, you could check web email, but there's no like email app. You can't buy additional apps. That's it. It's a $200 phone. There's nothing really with that you could have a feed with. So it's not like, what, actually, I take it back. I don't think it even has a web browser. I think it's exclusively just those things, and there's no way to access a feed. There's no way to get alerts. It's just basically those main kind of things that you would need to contact somebody from a phone.
Interesting. Again, it sounds like the cell phones we used to have. Somebody just pulled one out of the archives and said, hey, let's just revive this. This will be new. This will feel new to people.
They look super awesome too. Like I said, I'll put in the link in the show notes. Sorry, I can't think of the name of it right now. we're getting to the end. I got a few more questions for you about you, and I wanted to ask you about inspiration, where exactly you find inspiration. So what kind of websites do you listen to, or podcasts rather, do you listen to?
Right now, I'm obsessed with No Sleep, which I know you're a huge fan of.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert to everyone, Frederick turned me on to this podcast, and I haven't been able to turn it off. It's just these really short horror stories that are acted out by some really, really talented actors, and there's sound effects and everything. So it kind of takes you back to the old radio shows from back in the day, which a lot of people probably aren't familiar with, but for some reason I am. And so it's just a great way to unwind it. It helps me kind of get lost, and yet they're really short. They're like 20 minutes or less. So you feel like you have accomplished something by listening to that podcast. So that gives me a lot of inspiration in terms of creativity.
Well, it's good to have something like that to unplug. We were just talking to Autumn Sullivan the other day, and we were talking about there's so many business people that boast about these business books that they read, or these business blogs that they subscribe to, and all these things that they consume, but they don't actually read fiction.
Right.
They talk about storytelling, but they don't actually consume stories. They don't take some kind of a break, like taking a moment to read a Harry Potter or listen to a podcast that's just telling horror stories. Like, these are ways to unplug and to give your mind some space to imagine, right?
Yeah, it's a great way to recharge. And look, those podcasts, those books are incredibly valuable. I catch myself getting lost in a lot of marketing types of books, but I have to unplug sometime, and so No Sleep helps me do that.
Nice. And what actual books are you reading? Speaking of books.
Right now, I'm actually reading Stephen King's newest one, The Outsiders, and essentially it's about this teenager that gets killed in this town, and they think that it's the local coach and it's a small town, of course, and it's pretty much a clear-cut case. They arrest him and everything. But in only the way that Stephen King can deliver, as you learn more about it, it gets really complicated and twisted, and everything is not what it seems. So I'm like in the first fifth of the book. So I haven't really gotten into the action yet, other than this guy has been put away and people are so sure that he's the killer. So I'm excited to see what Stephen King will do. And I'm excited to see if it's going to be supernatural or what kind of horrific element he'll add to it. But I know whatever it'll be good.
Oh, that's so cool. You know, I'm slightly embarrassed to admit I didn't know he was still even writing books.
Yeah, he's still writing books. He probably puts out like 1 or 2 a year, and I know he collaborates with his son Joe Hill. And you know, he's still doing it. No, not Jonah.
The actor, right?
That would be something else. Oh my God. Writing like 21 Jump Street. Jonah Hill.
Oh, I love that guy.
Superbad. Yeah, you know, Stephen King's son starred in Superbad.
That guy's amazing.
He is.
So, hey, we're at the end of the show, and I want to ask if you have any kind of final words for our audience, maybe something we didn't bring up, any kind of words of wisdom that you would like to bestow everybody?
I would just like to reiterate, as we've been talking about GDPR, you know, in order to be an effective marketer today, you've got all these tools and resources out there, but what it actually comes down to is having an authentic connection with your audience. And that means getting to know who your audience is and not just guessing at what you think would be valuable, but actually asking those questions and learning what your audience wants and then delivering on that. So I would say, as we start looking at all this new legislation, just remember to always be authentic and do right by your customer, and you'll be successful in whatever you do.
Well said. That's a great takeaway. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Frederick.
And what's a good way people could get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you? Do you have a Twitter handle, a website, anything you want to share with people?
I would say that, you know, you can find me on LinkedIn, Grace Estle, Estle. You can find me on there and link up with me there. You can also send me an email. I am a millennial, but I am kind of a Gen Xer at heart because I'm right at the edge. So emailing is a great way to break through the clutter. So if you email me, it's just grace@neo, as in Northeast Ohio, .rr.com. And I would be happy to connect with you there.
I was so wondering what the Neo was. I thought there was like some funny Matrix email that you had from like.
I wish it was the Matrix. It's not. It goes back to my days in the Arctic of Northeast Ohio. But
Ohio.
You know, some things you can't let go of. That's right. Ohio.
Ohio pride. That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you spending some time with us, Grace. And like I said, great actionable takeaways here. A lot for everybody to consume and digest during the week and make some cool changes to maybe your way that you do business.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Frederick. And take care, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. Toodles.